So, guys, Brian and I doing the annual review of the league, the draft and the outlook for what we have. Definitely a different feel and vibe for this year. Not really optimal to do mode and not be in the same place and all the other stuff, but being the best of what is kind of just a crazy time right now. So, Brian, I don't know if you have anything you want to
Yeah,
start off with or share.
yeah, about 1.5 million less trades than normal, but that's fine. I mean, still took till 11, which is kind of funny how that still worked out. How it still took the same amount of time, even though we did less trades and less pizza. But it's what it is. No, let's get it going.
Yeah,
You want to just go down the line, first pick to the last pick, and go that way.
yeah. Let's do like Jay first.
Yep.
And before we started recording, I quickly looked at Jay, Tim, and Charlie, and I was like, damn, they got solid teams. So Jay, can't go wrong starting with CMC. Hopkins,
Yes, you can,
you know,
because
what's that?
CMC has a week 13 bye. God forbid he needs
Oh,
that last
yeah,
week of that season to make it into the playoffs. No, I'm fucking with him. It's fine.
I didn't even realize there were teams with buys that late.
Yeah.
Um, but no, he's got stacked team. I didn't realize that he's got the Allen and Henry combo in San Diego's offense or LA's offense,
Yeah, which
which that's suspected to say the least. But you got Fant in the back, as a backup.
yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that offense just in general. And David Johnson, I my feelings. I love him. I think it's actually a very positive situation. Um, it could work out very well, but it could also it could be a situation where he just gets hurt and is out for an extended period of time. And if he is, he's got backups, but he might be looking to flip one of his receivers for a running back if that's the case. So
Yeah, if AJ Green could stay healthy, that'd be big, and he would have Thielen as his number two, and then balancing between Allen and Green,
yeah,
whoever's going to do production. It could be a worse situation.
yeah,
Although one other thing I know, and I was starting to be real hot on Josh Allen, but he has some of the worst passing. And it's just if he's able to survive the potentially low passing weeks, and can withstand the rushing. The weeks that he doesn't rush and get in the end zone. Um, that's the one caveat. I was big on him at the beginning of the draft, and then I just sort of slowly got away from him. So
no. But I said he's got a really strong team between Hopkins and Allen and Thielen and McCaffrey. So I mean, solid starting point. It's hard to go wrong there. So
yeah, moving to Tim, you got Breeze, Barkley, Carson, Robinson, Hill, Ingram, Kamara, Koo, uh, Chark. He's got Devo thrown in his IR, which is a very sneaky pick. I love Justin Jefferson. Little bit of a reach where ADP is, but at that rate it's a dart throw, and I think he has the makings of being a really solid wide receiver too in the future. So I'm not talking just the Vikings, but I'm talking like fantasy wise. I think he's a great pick.
I don't know. I
So
guess
yeah,
for me, at that same point in time, just looking at if there was even anyone else that was even worth taking. I said he's got Keyshawn Vaughn and he's got you know where do you do that Keyshawn Vaughn pick? Sorry, yeah, between the 11th, 10th, and 11th. I said there's I'm not as high on Jefferson. I'm definitely not high on Vaughn. But as I kind of told him, right after the draft, I think those will be the first two spots to go when there's an injured player or something like that. So it's not going to impact him because his starters are so solid. He's definitely probably has the strongest starting roster. I think starting day one, especially between Barkley and Kamara. I mean, that's two top five guys sitting on his team. So
yeah, and the we said in the draft the Robinson pick was ridiculous. Like the fact that he landed him and waited on him for so long, it's great. And he essentially has Chark as his number 3 on the bench.
Yeah.
So he's got Carson if he's injured. He's not recovered from the hip surgery.
Yeah. He won't have any drop off on any of the bye weeks. Either Kamara goes up and replaces. He'll either have Carson or Chark replacing whoever's on a bye week every week. So I mean, he's set up really strong, pretty much across the board.
Yeah. Yeah. So going to Charlie and Jimmy's team. Watson, Elliott, Gordon, Galladay, Cooper, Kelsey, Sanders, Lutz, Bills, Akers, DJ Moore, Edelman, Moss, and obviously Kaepernick was a gag.
He's too. It's weird to almost say like he has too many. I mean, I can't imagine Melvin Gordon's. Like he has that extra guy too. But I love DJ Moore and Cooper and Galladay as starting receivers. I mean, they're all super low end wide receiver ones, high end or our wide receiver twos, all three of them, and getting Kelsey as the very clear between him and Kittle, tight end one. I mean, yeah, his running backs might need a little bit of work, but like for it to be like super elite, but he's still got such a strong team.
Yeah, I mean, the only pick I can maybe go at is the Cooper. And then even at that, it's for what Cooper is to his team. He's essentially a boom bust, high volatile player that if he doesn't perform, someone else will. And when he does perform, it's going to be week winning. So I mean, probably the only guy I would have maybe thought about at that spot was Beckham, and that was it. I mean,
yeah, it's funny. I'm actually sitting here looking like I'm like maybe I'll be real critical of the Gordon pick because I'm not that high of Gordon this year. But then you start looking back and what other running backs were there? And Johnson, Ingram, Mostert. It dropped off a cliff really quick. So even though I wasn't the highest on Melvin Gordon, just to fill out his roster and get that, for me he would be his third running back behind Zeke and Sanders. I think it's a strong depth move for when you're having that strong of a team. Obviously for most other people that he's going to be locking into their running back 1 or 2, but for his team it's looking back at it, it's a good depth play for his team to have solid locked up.
Yeah, and if you even look, I mean, Cam Akers could be something. I was thinking about taking him myself. Looking at like the Henderson injury, but he could be the starter depending on it's an ambiguous situation. It's up for grabs.
Yeah, I think he has the talent. I don't know if he's going to get there, but I think he has the talent too.
Yeah, and the other one is Zach Moss, who and now we're talking about depth. I mean, for Christ's sakes, now we're talking about his 4th and 5th running backs who have the upside of being potential.
Yeah, weirdly, I like them better than I like Gordon, to be completely honest. Because Gordon's part of a split, Akers and Moss are part of a split, and where he got those guys in the 5th and the 9th, I like considerably better than the 2nd. I would have preferred, with how much draft capital that he had, to move up and grab someone like Bell or Carson, even move up again earlier in the 2nd. He didn't need. I'm just looking at his other picks, right? Like he had a pick in the 5th. 5'3", 6'10", whatever else. He could have maybe tossed his 2nd and his 5th. Basically give up Gordon and Akers or what he got for Akers and get Bell or Carson. And who I would have I think preferred a little bit more. It's nitpicking because obviously it's hindsight on this, but I think there was a drop off for me, but that's fine.
Yeah, the one issue, and every year it goes with the underrated component of the super team building, is that his roster is so locked. He's not going to be able to do anything.
No.
And
that's the point I was even getting to, is that like if you're going to go super team, go super team. Like he's never going to find a waiver guy that's going to replace anyone on his roster. It's too strong.
No.
So like that's why like you need to tweak out those slight differences of Gordon and your other guy for like your slightly better third running back,
Yeah, that's the one draw. But I mean, we're now shitting on a team that is.
Oh yeah, it's nitpicking probably the strongest or second strongest team in the league. So yeah, I have no place to say a thing.
No, Connor. Next one is Stafford, Cook, Mostert, Evans, OBJ, Andrews, Gallup, Gonzalez, Patriots, Eckler, White, Slayton, and Sanders.
Good, good first draft.
Yeah. I at first I was like, damn, he's got Cook and Mostert. Like that's a varsity right there. But then I'm like, oh, he's got Eckler. Oh, never mind. He's actually Mostert as an RB3. Um, it's pretty solid all around. Like
Yeah.
can't complain. I think the risk of drafting or trading for Andrews and trading for Andrews and drafting Beckham was actually something that paid off.
Yeah. No. All in all, I mean, he would have been either reaching for Andrews. It's a matter of like you keep Andrews keeper value by doing it that way, and you save yourself a picks. I mean, I think that's probably the strongest thing that he did in the entire draft. Because not like I'm trying to downplay it, but Cook hit the 104, pretty straightforward. Evans where he got him there. He maybe he was choosing between Evans or Robinson or Beckham, but that's a pretty, not saying chalk move, but I mean he had a couple good options there to pick from. Beckham on the third spot was basically a lock. He kind of let the board come to him a little bit, and I think at each spot he gained a lot of value. Value like Mostert at 4.9. I'm not the highest on Mostert, personally, but once again you look at the running backs, and for his third running back, it's a very smart, strong pick. Gallup being there at 5.4, I love Gallup, and I think that's a really strong spot for a third wide receiver. So like, I think by letting the board kind of come to him, I think it fell favorably, but I think at the same time he took advantage of what was there at each spot.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. I expected Evans to go early second round. I was even thinking about Evans as potentially number 12 overall if both Kelsey and Kittle were gone, and the fact that he got him at 2.9, that's crazy. Um, Even Beckham, I would have expected Beckham being in
Yep.
the back end where Evans went. So yeah, no, solid first pick. First draft. All right, next we got Chris. We have Jackson, Jones, Gurley, Thomas, Stephen Diggs, Ertz, Ingram, Bears, Devontae Parker, Bobby Woods, Phil Rivers, Phil Lindsay, Dal Henderson, and Henry Ruggs.
I mean, he's gonna have to drop somebody there. Probably.
Oh no, he's gonna throw Henderson on IR probably, and then
Okay.
throw Henderson on for a little bit.
But I mean,
Running backs are just.
so it matters what you think, because I actually like both running backs. The problem is also we're comparing his running backs here to the four teams that were able to pick Zeke, McCaffrey, Zeke and Cook. You know.
Yeah, I disagree. I'm gonna say because.
Well, I guess the thing is, if you didn't pick Gurley, Jones, I think, is a chalk pick there, right? Unless you get.
Jones at which Jones is the top?
Sorry, Aaron Jones. See, or would you have gone? Would you have passed on Thomas, and then gone like CEH and then Jones, because it would have felt the same way.
To me, honestly, I would have for Chris at that rate, I would have just gone aggressive 0 RB, and if he had Jackson at 11, I probably would have gone Kelsey, honestly. So you would have had elite in Jackson, Thomas, and Kelsey, potentially 3 number ones at the position, and then circling back around where we got to the early spot, we could have maybe just gone safe on a Melvin Gordon side.
See, I think the thing is, you can't. The problem is, you can't take Thomas and then do that. So he would have had to go CEH or Mixon or Jacobs, which I think at that point those are all reaches over Thomas, and that's the problem. So like Thomas is such a safe, lock it in. Your first wide receiver spot's locked in. If there was another good running back there, I would agree with you. But because then at that point, if you went running back there, then you can go Kelsey for sure at 11, and then you could have gone wide receiver, and then got or you could have gone Gurley still and then you would have been scenario instead of Ertz, you would have been going Lockett or McLaurin, which so you're thinking about it that way. You could have had just a little bit of a different team layout based on how it went. The problem is you can't turn down Michael Thomas at 1-5 when there's questions with the other three guys right after.
Oh yeah, but if you think about it this way, right? You go Thomas at 5, you go Kelsey at 11, and then you go Gordon at 2.8. So you have.
I would have still done Gurley, but that's fine.
Or Gurley, whomever. All right, so you go Gurley with your 2.8. You skip on Ertz, and you grab McLaurin. You grab Ridley.
You don't need McLaurin or Ridley because you already have Thomas Diggs. Sorry, you already have Thomas and Woods.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that's what I'm saying. Go aggressive 0 RB.
And then you're
having the luxury of the extra second.
So basically you're
0 RB, but again the Jackson, Kelsey, Thomas. You're legitimately looking at 3 potential number one positions.
I don't know. I think when you start getting away from the running backs, especially in this league, then you're stuck at your second running back. I mean, Jones and Gurley are so easy to lock in. It's just I think there's 2 routes to have taken. One is I'll call it as you said the no running back route, and the other one is his route. And I think his route is the safer route where in our league, if you can lock in 2 starting running backs that are Jones is a running. Jones is a running back 1, and Gurley is a running back 2. No, I'm here. That's fine. You came back.
Hey Brian, I think I'm losing you.
Can you hear me? I can hear you.
Brian.
Hey, wait a sec. So just for everyone, for me.
I think it was my phone or yours.
No, it was my computer. But when you call me back, it might have fucked up the recording. So I'll fix it after. Yeah, I'll at least try to.
Or we may have to do it as 2 separate.
Well, we'll see. So, but it's basically you have 2 options. You have either the no running back option, which you would have. The thing is, you would have had to assume that Kelsey was going to be there, because there's no guarantee that Kelsey would have been there. I would not have assumed that Kelsey would have been there at 11. I would have thought Mahomes would have not been there. I would have thought Julio and Kelsey would have gone 9 and 10. And then you're sitting there, and maybe Kittle. If you're fine with Kittle, that's fine. To me, Kelsey's a better player, or a safer player, right? So then that's the challenge that you're also giving yourself is, I wouldn't have assumed Kelsey would have been there at 11.
Fair.
So
it's splitting hairs. I mean, I'm not completely crazy on Aaron Jones. I think he's got touchdown regression coming, and Gurley, I don't know if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, but Jones, if he goes from 18 touchdowns to 12 touchdowns, he's still an RB9 instead of RB4. Okay, it's still fine. There isn't a lot of. You think about that offense. Who's touching the ball? Devontae Adams.
The second best receiver.
Who?
In that offense.
Lazard. Yeah.
No, that's not wrong.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. There may be touchdown regression, but there may be yards. He may be getting more yards. They may go more running back heavy. Yeah, I said I don't think I'm not as down on Jones. I agree with the regression for touchdowns, but I'm not as down on as a player. It's a safe. They're both safe, strong picks. Gurley has in that offense. I mean, he was running back number 1 in 17 and 18 behind decent lines, and there's no reason why he can't get 70 receptions in Atlanta and in a high-powered offense where he can fall into the end zone 14 times. I think Gurley's actually an upside play. So if you have Jones as the safe play, maybe he's never going to go top 5, but maybe he'll safely be between 7 and 12. and Gurley can be anywhere between top 5 and bottom 24, you know what? That at least provides some variance at the position.
Yeah, and being buoyed by having Woods, Thomas, and Diggs is going to be a boom bust, but he also has Parker in the mix as well. There's some potential there. And let's call it for what it is too. He also has Lamar Jackson, which I don't think he's going to be at the same rate as last year when it comes to rushing and passing touchdowns, but he's still a crazy, crazy explosive player who's going to be anchoring his entire team.
Yep.
So, all right, the next we got John. We got Dak, CEH, Fournette, Lockett, Hilton, Waller, Jordan, Howard, Robbie Gould, Broncos, Rojo, Sutton, Breida, Cohen, and Locke, who's going to be a drop. So his team has the making of like the RB2 flex that is going to. I don't think Fournette's going to be a thing this year. I think he's actually going to either get cut or something's going to happen prior to him being productive in Jacksonville. But what John has with CEH, with Breida, and also with Cohen are three solid.
Well, yes, Jordan Howard too.
Receiving options.
So one thing that I was being very mindful of is with the Dolphins, is their schedule is horrific this year from an offensive perspective. Just something to consider. Just he doubled down on the Dolphins running back core, where you have to assume that Breida and Jordan Howard are going to split carries. Breida will probably get more in some negative game script type things. But here are their opponents for like their first 8 weeks. Patriots, Bills, both top defenses. Jags, all right, you got one easy week. Then you got Seahawks, Niners, Broncos, Chargers, Rams. Like 7 of your first 8 weeks are against top 10 to 15 defenses. You have to assume that the running back position is not going to be a position that Jordan Howard is basically for me a wasted pick solely because the first 8 weeks you're never gonna want to play him. And in Breida, sure he might get a whole bunch of catches, but you're gonna have you might have limitations on how many touchdowns you're gonna score, and that might lower some of your ceiling. So like, and then when you add in the Fournette situation where I think there's question marks around his potential touchdown production there, I'm struggling and the risk with CEH. I mean, we don't know. I mean, we're assuming that he's going to play and he's going to be the number one running back, but no one knows the structure at this point. So I'm just looking at the running back situation. You got question marks with CEH, not a lot, but is he 60%, 70%, 80% usage? Who knows? Fournette, restrictions on offense. Jordan Howard and Breida, I hate the team construction and who they're going against. Ronald Jones, it's going to be him, Vaughn, McCoy, whoever else, and Tariq Cohen. And Tariq Cohen never runs the ball, so there's always a relative ceiling where his max is an RB2. Like I see concerns here and I said it's not like I dislike any of the players. I'm questioning looking back at it. You have a lot of guys whose ceiling is at max an RB2, or CEH. It could be a risk of even getting an RB1.
Running backs that are capable of receiving the ball, and even though Breida through his first few years in San Fran hasn't shown or flexed the receiving output, he can be that change of that down pace. I think he's going to take that job. I'm not crazy.
No, I agree. I think he should take the job. I think he's the better quality running back. The problem is, the first 8 weeks you're still playing against teams that are the Dolphins might score one touchdown the entire game. They're playing the top defenses in the league last year.
Yeah,
that's where I'm seeing the problem is he may be on the field for 60% of the times, but rush for 30 yards, catch 6 balls for another 30 yards, and get no touchdowns, and then all of a sudden you're sitting there with 7.5 points. That's where my concern is.
Yeah, and I, so I also heard you on the CEH pick, and they, even though the draft capital, real life draft capital is there, and there is the desire to fire him up, um, he could be brought in slowly and
Yeah,
not necessarily
I agree.
the full dog.
No, that I agree.
And and we want to be forward to think about like, oh, if he's the next Christian McCaffrey, but he can also be just Darren Sproles. And I don't think insult to Sproles, but I just don't know how much usage he is going to take from day one, and the fact that we haven't had a preseason um, hasn't helped. Again, the Fournette thing, I think Fournette last year he helped out a lot of fantasy teams with a dump off of 3 yards, 4 yards, and it was ugly just on that ride. He's not, for how high they drafted him in real life, he's not the player that is worthy of the extension, of the hype that came out of LSU. And I think that the writing has been on the wall since last year or the past 2 years when they suspended him. They didn't pick up his 50-year option, tried trading him. Like I don't know if a guy like Rock Armstead wasn't COVID positive right now, I don't know if Fournette would be on the team. But I think at this point they don't really have any other options, so he's just there. And I think they're going to eat into his production, eat into his touches and carries relatively shortly. Once they're going for the number one overall or Aaron Rodgers, whichever.
Yeah.
So, all right. The next is Dom, which I just looked at his team, and we gotta put on the kid gloves because I know like Mike did him very dirty, very 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 harsh.
I like the keepers.
Keeper wise, yeah. I mean Montgomery. If Montgomery is not fully out for the first 5 to 6 weeks, okay, that may not be an awful pick, but it's way too early to try to figure it out. Sony Michel, I mean, there's a lot of other options. I do appreciate though the go after Madison, go after Pollard, and there is value.
Yeah, those are the top two handcuffs that will have RB1 upside if the situation falls. So I mean I think if he was in a very similar situation to me, where basically you can go one or two things. You can either try to go for this year, in which case locking up handcuffs now I think is a smart play, or you can go for next year, which is drafting you know guys that may not be good this year but might have keeper potential next year. So I think those two picks kind of show it. You know what? I'm not willing to throw away this year. I want to give this year a chance. And if either of those two hit, then his team flips immediately as now having good value because Wilson's good, his receivers are good. I just think that there's a little bit more there. I mean, right now you look at the flex spot, you can't realistically start Madison there. You can't right now. You can't start his running. He's gonna have to move Peterson into the running back spot, and then he's going to have Renfro in the flex because you can't start Madison or Pollard right now. So obviously he's gonna have to fill out his team a little bit more with some waiver wild guys, there are some guys out there, um, you know, without giving anything away. He can pick up, John Brown. He can pick up, Preston Williams. Even though I just said before.
Johnson.
What?
Duke
Johnson.
Duke
Yeah.
Johnson, Chris Thompson. I mean, there are guys that you can get a steady just baseline of receptions that may give a little more upside. I mean, it's going to be a rough year, and we I think all agree that he was pretty much put with one hand behind his back, and he just made the best of it.
Yep.
So, all right, we'll go to Rob, and Rob's got Murray, Jacobs, Henry, Hollywood. Brandon Cooks, Gronk, Tyler Boyd, Kerryon Johnson, Christian Kirk, Sterling Shepard, Lamar Miller, and Robbie Anderson. Um, I, there's a lot to like in the sense of, if the big dog is getting as much carries and work, if Jacobs gets receptions, I think Jacobs is a really solid RB1. Hollywood Brown, if he stays healthy, could be a massive, massive win and score for him.
Yeah.
And I think between him and Cooks, he's got the making of two big play guys that can explode week to week. Not crazy on Gronk. I think just there's a lot of top targets there. And
Yeah.
I don't know.
Kirk. So it's funny. The receivers, I'm actually very scared about. Because Brown and Cooks, if you want to think about two players that are both, under 170 pounds, and Cooks has concussion history, and Brown was injured last year and could get injured with one hit. It wasn't exactly like he wasn't knocked around a whole lot. Just they're two very boom bust players potentially. If one or both of them get hurt, yeah, you have Boyd, but I'm not big on Boyd this year just because of the depth of the receiving core there. If Green's back, then you're stuck with Kirk and Shepard and Anderson, who is a non-play obviously because he's going to get dropped. But Kirk, I loved. I absolutely loved that pick because I think he has a ton of value in that offense. It's just it's just a little bit of a weird construction for me, where you're basically putting your top two receivers as high as high risk guys. When there were a few maybe just to split those up a little bit more and get a one high risk if you really love Hollywood, and then getting a safer pick with the second one.
See, so like I see it as I agree on the concussion history for Cook. Every place he's gone, he's produced, and he's changed teams multiple times. And granted, 1,000-yard season really means nothing to 60, 61, or 62 yards a game. But down as you went brush over Shepard. Shepard does produce and he does well against certain coverages, and I think he's gotten way overlooked in comparison to Slayton. And I think he's going to provide a pretty safe floor, so that if say one of those guys get hurt, one of those boom bust guys, I think he can go in really nicely and be a steady wide receiver too.
No, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I would have almost preferred another running back or maybe get one of the tight ends there, because to me, Cooks and Brown cover the same spot for me, right? They're high upside receivers, and then you have Boyd and Shepard who kind of serve the floor guys, and Kirk to me is kind of a floor guy. So there's I think it's going to be a lot of struggling of do I want to in each week. Each week, are you going to start Hollywood Brown and Brandon Cooks, where both guys could do 30 points, or both guys can do less than 3, based on the week, and it can be a real struggle to figure out which one you're going to want to start, or if you're going to start both, then you're really leaving a high variable week. That it's just a week by week construction. I can see Rob wanting to pull his hair out. That's all.
Yeah.
Not like I don't dislike any of the players. I think that's where I was thinking is just the week by week, it just might be tough to want to start one of those guys, or both of those guys, even though I like them both individually.
No, like I said, buoyed with Henry and Jacobs, and Murray. There's a lot of positives about Murray and Hopkins. He's a bit of a bumpy ride too, but if he gets production from Murray, Jacobs, and Henry, I think he's going to be a little more prone to the boom bust games. You just got to see what comes from that. All right, so next is Patch. We've got Mahomes, Bell, Singletary, McLaurin, Cup, Hurst, Lamb, Brady, Justin Jackson, Deshaun Jackson, and A.J. Dillon.
So let's start with the easy pick. The Patrick Mahomes, worth it or not? Because to me, I'm taking Julio there all day, every day, and not thinking about it twice. And I think his team would
Yeah.
look completely different. I know Mahomes is great. It's an easy one, but like if I'm looking at the team with Bell, I mean, because I love his Hurst pick in the ninth. I think it's a real value for where he got Hayden Hurst. I think that he has 80 to 90
Oh yeah. Yeah.
catches his
I was
way.
upset with that.
So I mean, I can't even complain about him not getting Kelsey, but like if I'm sitting with a McLaurin, Cup, and Julio, with then Bell and Singletary is like nice solid RB2s. I mean, you have upside, you have consistency, and then you could still in any of his spots afterwards. I'm just thinking about the what is he? What is he at the eighth, ninth, 10th? I mean, he could have taken. I'm just seeing which quarterbacks are there.
He
Um,
had Brady too.
I mean, he got Brady, but I mean, I'm just saying like, he could have went Cam if you want to do Cam. He could have kept Brady, but I mean, like, there's just, you know,
Yeah. But I agree with that. I mean, the Mahomes pick, and we kind of saw it with Joe last year when he picked Mahomes and he didn't produce, albeit for injury. Just the replacement level for
yeah,
for Mahomes
yeah. Cause
is
you look at the rest of
ridiculous.
the team, it's like, well, okay, what's the difference between Mahomes and Brady? Let's just say it's 5 points per game. I think the difference between CeeDee Lamb and Julio is going to be more than 5 points.
Yeah, and
And
and the Mahomes pick would have been more reserved for a Charlie, um, a guy like Charlie who had so much, and I think that's what you want to do. I wouldn't have been
Well,
shocked if
and he did say during the
Mahomes.
draft, it does give him the option to dump him as trade bait, which was one of my considerations when if I was keeping my second round pick, where Mahomes will turn around at least a second round value, if not more, week 5, 6, 7, 8, to someone that's 4-0, 5-0, and looking to make a run. And it makes perfect sense if he's like, what, I'm gonna hedge my season, and and be ready to dump if I need to, then Mahomes is to me the number one trade chip that you want to have.
Yeah, I mean, I got a different value of quarterbacks at the deadline because I probably wouldn't spend more than a third or a fourth personally, but I could see the other end of you have Mahomes. He's if you want to block somebody and pay up a little more.
Well, think about it this way: do you think Lamar would have if Mahomes has it the year that he had the year before? It was similar to Lamar last year. Do you think someone would pay a first for Lamar Jackson last year? Of course they would.
Yeah, the different story of keeper value and everything else too.
No, no, I'm just saying, just from a performance. If Lamar was just performing the way he was last year, and you were um, on a playoff run, super team type of thing, you would pay a first this year to get Lamar if he was going to be giving you 8 to 9 points over the quarterback position of every single week. Like it's a no brainer. Yeah, and that's what Mahomes was the previous year.
Yeah, I mean the offense is it's a wagon anyway, so you know exactly what you're. Well, hopefully you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
All right, so Ryan's team, and I didn't realize, but he came out with a Matt Ryan Julio Jones stack, which is
Yep.
you have Matt Ryan, Chubb, Connor, Julio, Landry, Kittle, Hardman, Prater, Chargers, Marlon Mack, Marvin Jones, Jameson Crowder, and Bud Love.
Just there's not a weak
Surprising
person in
for
that
me.
roster. I don't think.
No, I big fan of the stack. Um,
Yep.
Landry is a solid baseline. I don't know how his injury is right now, but he has Jones and Crowder. Crowder's going to just be a target monster. They
Yeah.
just don't have
And
any
yeah.
offensive weapon.
So it's funny because you can if you say Landry, you're not gonna know what you get out of him, even though he's been top 24 the last like 3 years. Crowder, I think Crowder is a less talented Landry with more potential of targets, and Marvin Jones is honestly could be just as good as Galladay, based off of his production and touchdown potential as well. In that offense too. I mean, just a strong team, and then you forget once again, Kelsey and Kittle are such differentiators at the tight end position. Him getting Kittle, getting the Julio Kittle stack was I think the perfect situation for what he could have expected to get at the 10 and then at the 15. He got the last tier of top receiver, with Thomas and Jones, and he got the last tier of top tight end before everything else went to hell.
Yeah, no, that's and he lucked out on those first two picks, and then starting out with Chubb and Chubb and Connor. Now, if Connor can stay healthy, he
Well,
could be.
well, the funny thing is, I can tell you because I know what he would have gone otherwise. If Jones wasn't there, say if Mahomes wasn't picked, he was going to go Kelsey at 10, and then he would have gone at either Evans or Robinson at 15, just as a.
Which is what I would have expected anyway.
Yep, but I mean, either way, I think it would have felt similarly. I think it's if that would have been an A minus, this is an A plus. I think they would have both been a fine construction, but especially when you're starting off with Chubb and Connor, your running back position's secured. So
All right. The next, I mean, you had really no picks, no keeper, or you had one keeper, but the no quarterback, which respect you can grab week one.
yeah,
Dobbins, Drake, Fuller, Johnson, Hawkinson, Damian Harris, Bucker, Judy, Rager, Devonta Freeman, DeAndre Austin, Chase Edmonds, and Herndon. So I mean, there's a lot of individual guys who I'm like, I was looking to go personally all in on Dobbins. I was trying to move up. Drake, if he's healthy, he could be good. You have Edmonds backing him up, but he also has he has individual standalone value. Fuller, if he's healthy, he has shown not only the just big play potential, but he's only one from the receiving corps from last year that has had experience with Watson. So there's a lot there. Johnson, same thing. As long as Big Ben is healthy, and I'm similar in the boat with Juju, as long as he's healthy, I think that offense
yeah. I mean, for
pretty good.
yeah. No, I mean for me, I think Fuller, I think has, I think he has the potential to be in the same range as like Galladay, Robinson, and Beckham if he stays healthy, and I think Johnson has the potential to be, um, you know, not quite like one half of what Thielen and Diggs were, but he's gonna get over 100 targets. He has the potential, to get 80 for 1,007, which is fine, and I think it's just free. I was just going for free targets and upside on every pick, you know. Judy and Rager. I mean, yeah,
Rager's going to be leading charge, and they've spent high draft on him. Judy saying, you're throwing darts at first rounders this year, and even though Judy is tied to lock as a quarterback, he is going to be just working the slot, working these short stuff, and he may be a better talent than Sutton.
To me, Judy was the number one receiver in the draft. He's been the number one receiver in college for me for the last 3 years. It's just one of those things where it's like his talent is undeniable, and I can't imagine him not breaking out. Like I just see him, and I just see Antonio Brown, just a taller Antonio Brown, and I just don't see how it doesn't pan out. Like it just he was the best route runner. They were saying he's the best route runner coming out of college in the last 5-10 years. I can't imagine that skill doesn't go away.
Right. No, and he really well for like reception and everything else too. So,
yeah.
I mean, he can do the goods, and he can definitely he did well even last year, but it's just he had a shitty quarterback play.
Yeah, and obviously Freeman, I can tell you, Freeman will probably be dropped, and Herndon will probably be dropped, between now and then. But like, the thing is, I liked Herndon a ton, and I may keep him over Hawkinson, just because I think both of them are high upside tight ends, and they give it a couple more weeks to see how each team is planning on bringing them into their offenses, but
Right.
and maybe DeAndre Washington becomes a running back. Who never knows? If it's 50-50 for the first couple of weeks, maybe he actually is worth something. Who knows?
Yeah. And so, all right, the last one is mine. Newton, Mixon, Taylor, Adams, Godwin, no tight end. Ridley, Zerline, Steelers, Juju, Kareem Hunt, DeAndre Swift, Antonio Gibson, and Aaron Rodgers. So you can start off, and then I'll just shit on my draft.
Cam, I love. Mixon's fine. That way you got him. Taylor is a reach. The problem is, if you want another running back to be able to stem the tide until like week 5, and then when Taylor will be worth the start. Because I don't I think that he'll get eased in, or it'll just take a couple weeks for it to be settled. And you don't have that second running back that you could just throw in there as like I'm just gonna start this guy and get myself some guaranteed points. And that's the only because and instead you're just way too heavy at receiver, which is great. The problem is no one's gonna be willing to trade a receiver in his first 4 weeks because everyone's gonna want to figure out their roster, figure out their record, figure out if they even want to take on a guy, give up something like that. I think that's your only problem is you just need to get through the first 4 weeks. If you get through the first 4 weeks 2-2, 3-1, which you usually can do with your talent, then I think you're fine. If you're coming back on the other side 1-3, and then maybe you take on an injury, then all of a sudden it's like, well, one of your receivers get injured, now you have a little bit less to toss around. You can't trade away Juju. If let's just say Juju gets hurt, just make it easy, right? Then you have Godwin, Ridley, and Adams. You need to start all 3. Your bench, otherwise, you really don't want to start any of those guys, and you don't have enough trade bait unless you want to dump next year to try to gain another running back. It's just you're off balance, and you're leaving yourself open for either an injury or just maybe Taylor doesn't get the share that you and I both think he is going to get, but you never know. And I think that's where you're open. Because also Gibson, where you took Gibson, he's all well and good. He's also not going to get a high share of the stuff in that offense. AP, especially early, is going to take the brunt of the work. Bryce Love is there. He's another end of the season guy, I think. So you could have taken, honestly, I would have taken Damian Harris there, which is the guy I took, because I think Harris is at least projected early season work. Or you could have taken Philip Lindsay, or who has at least some guaranteed points early. That's my only downside is with the Taylor pick is taking Taylor's fine, but you didn't balance it out on the back end to give yourself a chance, because I think the Gibson pick honestly is a punt to me. You're going to have to cut him in order to make your team work. So it's just a waste of an 8th round pick. Even though I like the player, I just don't think it was a right fit for your team.
So and that's where I started really getting down on Kelsey, or not taking Kelsey, because so if you said to me, okay, you had Kelsey instead of Godwin, and now it's wide receivers being Adams, Ridley, Juju.
Yep.
With Kelsey as a tight end, and then you had, Mixon and it's now three rookie running backs.
Yep. If you had Kelsey in your tight end spot, your same 3 receivers, you can suffer. If Taylor only does 50% of the work for the first 3-4 weeks, okay, that's fine. You still have Kelsey. Kelsey's still gonna, you're gonna gain 5 points on every other tight end, in the league just by having Kelsey. Then you can lose a little bit in your RB2 spot. That's fine. When you lost that on that, Godwin versus Juju is a push to me, and one of them's gonna be sitting on your bench.
Yeah, and that's tough thing, and I may have gotten caught up with last year with getting hurt, with Juju first getting hurt, and then it did work out in the end with having 4 wide receivers, but that was for the end of the year push, not necessarily the beginning of the year. But there's some potential if Chubb gets hurt. Hunt could be a big thing.
It's funny where you also took Rodgers. I mean, you could have taken something even as Bryce Love, or you could have taken. There were other people there. I think you with all the picks and all the trading you did. Like once again, you instead of taking the Steelers a deal in your 11th spot, you could have taken just Tariq Cohen.
Tariq Cohen, yeah,
I'm just looking back at who's there. Tariq Cohen instead of the Steelers is like that's a waste of a pick once again because no one was. I mean, who cares about the Steelers? I mean, they're not even that great of a defense. I mean, they're good, but I mean, like to be that much of a fantasy value, and you could have started Cohen for their first 4 weeks until Montgomery comes back, and all of a sudden Montgomery comes back week 3, 4, whatever else, and then all of a sudden you can bench Cohen, have him as depth, and then that's when Taylor picks it up. Like that would have actually been like the perfect running back to complement.
Yeah, no, that's true, and I didn't even see Cohen there when I took the Steelers, so I was just
you get your fantasy pros D grade and move on.
Yeah.
No, I mean the funny thing is though, like I think when you look back at the whole league, I think you have 3 super teams with um, Jay, Tim, and Charlie. I think you have, let's call it 5 to 6 good teams, which has strengths and weaknesses based on either what they had as keepers or what they drafted. But it's kind of luck of the draw slash injury slash COVID slash whatever else. And I think you have me and Dom who are a step behind. And basically need either fortunate waiver picks to gain an extra spot to then start pushing into the playoffs. I think that's kind of like where you're looking at from a tiers perspective going into the season.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. And oh shit, you know what I realized? I never picked the division. So what I'll have to do is tomorrow I'm gonna do a quick video for everybody, and
I can do a randomizer right now.
I have to pick them out of the paper. Honestly, I'll just record it. Or what's your randomizer? Is that just?
I put 1 through 12, and I put them into 2 groups. Here, so I'm going from 1 to 12. I'll take a picture of it. Group 1 has 6. Group 2 has 6. I'll hit it once. One time go.
What are you saying? Like from you're saying like number 1 being Jay, number 2 Tim, number 3 Carly, and so on.
Give me 1 second.
Right.
Yeah, it's in the draft order.
Okay, all right.
All right, so the first one is numbers 1. So J.
Yes, tell me the numbers and we'll read them.
Okay, 1, 4, 5, 7, 9, 10.
2, 3, 6, 8,
11, 12.
12.
Yep.
Cool. So it's so you have Jay, you have Thomas, you have Chris. 7 was Dom.
Yep.
You had 9 was
Patch.
And
then 10 was Ryan.
Ryan.
Yep.
Actually pretty balanced, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take a picture of it just so you can see it.
Yeah, I'm writing it down right now. So
no, I know, in case anyone cares, and there's enough EY people that know what an EY random looks like. As it's our random generation tool. If it's good enough for auditing, it's good enough for the league.
We got Rob. We got Ryan.
I mean, our league has 2 of the top guys, I think, but
yeah, cool.
Yeah. You know what though? Since I have that first round picks, maybe I can knock them both out. That's how it can work. Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Alright, well, it was great talking to everyone. And circumstances hasn't allowed us to get together, and it's definitely totally abnormal times. But hopefully we have football, and hopefully we don't have any teams deciding that they're not going to play like the NBA. Because otherwise, I couldn't even tell you what we would do from there.
No. Well, we'll make do, and I said good luck everyone, and we'll do another one of these mid-season or so.